The sound of metal breaking is never as loud as people imagine. It's sharp, brief, almost polite. But that Sunday morning, when the old platinum bracelet snapped, it echoed through me like a gunshot. My 16-year-old niece, Madison, didn't even look at my face. She was holding her phone high, camera angled just right, live streaming to an audience that cared more about sparkle than substance. With one careless motion, she slid the vintage bracelet off my wrist and thrust it toward the screen. "Look at this," she laughed. "Total junk, it's all dull." When it didn't slide easily over her hand, she didn't bother opening the clasp. She pulled. The safety chain, delicate, irreplaceable, nearly a century old, gave way with a soft snap. Tiny fragments of platinum fell against the stone patio like bones hitting the floor. Madison giggled. "Oops." Across the table, my brother Ryan lifted his glass, sipping his mimosa as if nothing had happened. My sister-in-law, Tiffany, didn't even glance up. She was adjusting the brightness on her ring light, frowning at a shadow that didn't match her aesthetic. No one moved. No one apologized. To them, it was just jewelry. They had no idea it was the reason they were still living in this house. Before I explain exactly how expensive that moment became, let me say this. Disrespect is rarely loud. Most of the time, it's quiet, casual, served with brunch. I bent down and picked up the broken pieces. The platinum felt heavy in my palm, like something that had lost its heartbeat. Above me, the garden party continued. Laughter, clinking glasses, curated perfection. This house was a performance. Imported marble counters, manicured hedges, a luxury SUV in the driveway. Everything looked effortless, but it was all smoke and mirrors, credit cards stretched thin, loans disguised as gifts, and rescues no one ever acknowledged. I was the unseen support beam. To them, I was Natalie, the boring sister-in-law, the archivist who worked with old papers and quiet rooms. I wore practical shoes. I drove an aging sedan. I didn't post my life online. I was tolerated because I was useful. I stood up, slipping the broken bracelet into my pocket. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. Years ago, I might have begged them to understand what that bracelet meant. But the woman standing there felt something colder. Clarity. For years, I had asked myself why I stayed. Why I paid their property taxes when foreclosure loomed. Why I quietly covered emergency expenses, surprise vacations, school fees. Why I wired tens of thousands of dollars every year so Madison could attend an elite music conservatory while they mocked my cheap lifestyle. I used to call it kindness. I told myself I was keeping the family together. But as I watched Tiffany rewatch the clip of Madison humiliating me, already trimming it for social media, I understood the truth. It wasn't kindness. It was conditioning. When you grow up being the fixer, you learn that love is transactional. If you solve the problem, you're allowed to stay. If you pay the bill, you earn your place. You accept the chain because you're terrified of who you'll be without it. Brick by brick, check by check. A prison you build yourself. For 31 years, I believed endurance would buy me respect. That silence was dignity. That invisibility was noble. But Madison was already scrolling, bored, done with me. They didn't see a sister or an aunt. They saw a resource. And when a resource breaks, you don't apologize. You replace it. Tiffany finally glanced at me, waving a dismissive hand. "Don't be so dramatic, Nat. It looked old anyway, probably worth scrap." I looked at her, at the house my money had saved, at the child my money was educating. The chain around my neck didn't snap. It dissolved. "I'm leaving," I said quietly. Ryan didn't turn around. "Okay, don't forget Mom's birthday gift next week." I walked through the house, the one where overdue bills hid in drawers, and out the front door. I closed my car door gently, not slamming it. Inside the car, the silence wasn't empty. It was final. The drive home passed in a blur. I didn't speed. I drove carefully, deliberately, like someone who had just realized they were holding a detonator. My apartment welcomed me with stillness. Old books, lemon polish, calm. I set my keys down and made a cup of tea, watching steam rise in the quiet kitchen. My hands didn't shake. I sat at my small desk and opened my laptop. First, my bank account. Then a new spreadsheet. I titled it The Ledger. For the first time, I wrote down numbers I had always carried silently. Mortgage payments when Ryan lost his job, $42,000. Tiffany's failed boutique loan, $25,000. Down payment disguised as a gift, so they'd qualify for their current house, $80,000. The total made my chest tighten. They lived like royalty, sneering at my modest choices, unaware their lifestyle rested entirely on my restraint. They believed spending meant power. They were wrong. Power is control. And I controlled everything. I logged into the conservatory's donor portal. My name wasn't there, only an anonymous ID. On the screen sat the Madison H. Artistic Merit Grant, $60,000 per year. I had funded it quietly. I wanted her to succeed. I wanted her to have chances I never had. I wanted them to see me. They never saw the giver, only the gift. Beside my laptop sat the broken bracelet. A jeweler once valued it at $21,000, but that wasn't its worth. Its value was history, legacy, respect. 3 years of tuition, $180,000. The bracelet, priceless. They destroyed something sacred because they thought I was cheap. I moved my cursor to manage funding. Hovered. Then clicked. Cancel recurring transfer. A confirmation box appeared. This action is immediate and may affect enrollment. I clicked yes. The status changed to inactive. I leaned back, took a sip of tea. The silence wasn't lonely. It was expensive, and it was only the beginning. The first crack in their perfect world appeared at exactly 9:02 a.m. the next morning. My phone buzzed across my desk while I was reviewing archival notes. The name on the screen made me pause. Tiffany. She never called this early. Mondays were sacred. Content planning, brand emails, pretending productivity was the same as work. I answered calmly. Hello. Natalie, thank God, she rushed out, skipping pleasantries entirely. We have a serious problem. I leaned back in my chair, watching sunlight spill across a shelf of labeled boxes. What kind of problem? The conservatory just called Ryan. They're saying Madison's tuition payment didn't go through. Her voice rose sharply. They said the funding was withdrawn. Withdrawn. I let the words sit between us. That's odd, I said mildly. Odd, she snapped. It's humiliating. Madison is in the middle of rehearsals. If this isn't fixed today, they're threatening to suspend her. I took a slow sip of my coffee. That does sound stressful. Stressful? Tiffany nearly screamed. It's a disaster. Look, Ryan is useless with paperwork, and I have a brand deadline. Since you work with documents all day, can you just call them? Use your professional tone. Tell them it's obviously a clerical mistake. There it was. Even now, she assumed I was the solution. I can't call them, I said evenly. I'm not her guardian. Just pretend, she hissed. Say you're her manager or something. Fix it, Natalie. We don't have time for this. I smiled, though she couldn't see it. I'm sure the donor had their reasons. Reasons? She scoffed. What reasons? Madison is talented. This is probably some jealous administrator trying to sabotage her. The irony tasted sharp. I can't help you, I said. You'll have to handle it yourselves. She inhaled to shout, but I ended the call first. I set my phone to silent and returned to my notes. The quiet that followed wasn't peaceful. It was anticipatory. Reality had been delayed for years by my money. Now it was arriving on schedule. By Wednesday, denial had curdled into performance. Tiffany posted a tearful video online. Black and white filter, trembling voice, mascara perfectly smudged. Some jealous family members are trying to destroy Madison's future, she whispered. They hacked her scholarship. It's heartbreaking. I watched it during my lunch break, feeling a strange blend of disgust and detachment. She wasn't asking for help. She was rallying sympathy. Then my phone buzzed again. Madison? Aunt Nat, Mom says you won't fix the glitch. Seriously, I need a new violin bow for the showcase. And since you're being weird, you owe me. I looked it up. Cartier has a bracelet that's actually cute. Buy me that and we'll be even. Even? I stared at the screen, stunned by the sheer confidence of it. She broke an heirloom, lost a scholarship, and somehow I still owed her. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened a new document on my work computer and began typing a formal letter. The elite music conservatory knew me well. Not as a donor, but as a historian. For 5 years, I had archived the founder's original manuscripts. I restored brittle pages, authenticated lost compositions, curated the exhibit that earned them international recognition. I wasn't visible, but I was essential. My letter was precise, calm, unemotional. I outlined the terms of the Artistic Merit Grant. I cited the Donor Ethics Clause, specifically the section addressing respect for historical preservation and institutional legacy. Then I attached two images. One was the broken bracelet. The other was a handwritten letter from the conservatory's founder, addressed to my grandmother. I ended with a single paragraph. This student has demonstrated a profound disregard for the historical legacy this institution represents. The destruction of a personal artifact belonging to the founder for social media attention constitutes a violation of the spirit under which this grant was awarded. Funding is hereby permanently revoked. I hit send. 10 minutes later, a reply arrived. Dear Miss Natalie, we are deeply disturbed by this information. The revocation has been processed immediately. Additionally, we will be initiating a conduct review regarding the student's enrollment. Thank you for your continued dedication to preserving our history. I closed my laptop. The shift was complete. I wasn't the quiet helper anymore. I was the archivist. And archivists decide what survives. That afternoon, I took the bracelet to a private jeweler tucked behind a heavy, buzzing door in the historic district. The air smelled of metal polish and patience. The jeweler examined the pieces under a magnifying lens, his movements slow and reverent. This wasn't wear, he said softly. This was force. I know. He paused, studying the inner band. Then he stiffened. Do you know what this is? He asked. It was my grandmother's. He turned the bracelet slightly. Inside, barely visible, was an inscription. For Eleanor, for the music that saved me. 1948. The name beneath it stole my breath. The founder. This, the jeweler said quietly, isn't just jewelry. It's a relic. The weight of it settled over me like truth. Madison hadn't just broken something old. She had shattered history. Can you fix it? I asked. Yes, he said, but the scar will remain. Good, I replied. Leave it. When I stepped back into the sunlight, my phone buzzed relentlessly. Missed calls, texts. We need to talk. This has gone too far. We're coming over. I smiled faintly. Let them come. They still thought this was about money. They had no idea it was about legacy, and I was done letting mine be trampled. The silence before the confrontation wasn't fear. It was preparation. Because when they arrived, I wouldn't be negotiating. I would be closing the archive. They arrived that evening without warning. The knock wasn't polite. It was urgent, frantic, loud enough to echo down the hallway of my apartment building. I didn't rush. I finished the page I was reading, marked my place, then stood and walked to the door. Through the peephole, I saw them all. Ryan pacing. Tiffany blotchy and disheveled. Madison standing apart, arms crossed, fury barely hiding something else. Fear. I opened the door but didn't step aside. Yes? I asked calmly. Ryan pushed past me anyway. Natalie, this is insane. He stopped in the middle of my living room, spinning as if the space itself offended him. Do you have any idea what you've done? Tiffany rushed in behind him. They gave us 48 hours, she cried. 48! $60,000 or Madison is expelled. Madison dropped onto my couch without asking, kicking her shoes onto the rug. This is so unfair, she muttered. I didn't even do anything. I closed the door. Slowly. I can't loan you the money, I said. Ryan rounded on me. Of course you can. You have savings. You live like a monk. We're family. It wasn't a clerical error, I replied quietly. I walked to my desk and picked up a single printed page, the confirmation notice. I handed it to him. Read the bottom. His eyes scanned until they froze. Donor signature, Natalie Vance. The color drained from his face. You? Tiffany whispered. You were the donor? For 3 years, I said. $180,000, anonymous. But why didn't you tell us? Ryan demanded. Because I wanted Madison's success to be about her, I answered. And because I knew if you knew the money came from me, you'd treat it like everything else I give you. Owed. Tiffany sank onto the arm of the chair. You canceled it because of a bracelet? Not just the bracelet, I said. Because of the way you watched her destroy something precious and laughed. Because no one apologized. Because you taught her that people are disposable. Madison scoffed. It was old. God, get over it. It wasn't just old, I said, my voice cutting clean through the room. It belonged to the founder of your conservatory. The name hit like a dropped instrument. Madison went still. He gave it to my grandmother in 1948, I continued. She helped save his music after the war. When you broke that chain, you didn't just break jewelry. You broke a living piece of the legacy you claim to worship. Ryan looked sick. Tiffany covered her mouth. Madison stared at the floor, defiance cracking at last. I'm a historian, I said softly. It's my job to protect history from people who don't understand its value. The power shifted, sudden, undeniable. They weren't demanding help anymore. They were trespassers in the home of their benefactor. Tiffany lunged forward, tears spilling now without filters. Please, Natalie, she's just a child. You can't punish her for being careless. Careless is forgetting a thank you note, I replied. Destroying history for attention is rot. Ryan stepped closer, voice breaking. If she's expelled, she'll never recover. Her future will be over. No, I said, it will just be earned. I looked at Madison. Shame and fury warred across her face. I'm not destroying your future, I told her. I'm saving it. Talent without character becomes cruelty. If I bail you out now, you'll learn nothing. I opened the door. Cool evening air rushed in. I'm planting a consequence, I said. Maybe one day when you hold something fragile, you'll remember the sound of that snap and choose differently. They left without another word. No door slammed. 3 weeks later, I returned to the jeweler. The bracelet lay on velvet, restored but not erased. A thin silver scar ran through the platinum where the chain had been fused. Metal remembers, the jeweler said. So do I replied. I slipped it onto my wrist. It felt heavier, truer. Madison was withdrawn from the conservatory. Ryan and Tiffany couldn't raise the money. She enrolled in the local public school instead. I heard she sold her expensive violin bow to replace a cracked phone screen she dropped. It wasn't justice. It was accountability. That evening, I sat in my living room as the sun dipped low, light glinting off archival boxes stacked neatly against the wall. My phone was silent. My bank account untouched. The invisible chain was gone. I wasn't the fixer anymore. I wasn't the resource. I was just Natalie. And for the first time in my life, the silence wasn't waiting to be filled. It was peace.